My dad wanted to sell me to a brothel to get money for gambling. I went straight for a pillar to bash my head against it. I'd rather die than let him get his way. The fifth prince happened to pass by and sent his guards to save me, then let me work as a kitchen maid in his residence. When he was placed under house arrest, I was the only one who stayed ladder. He stood in the Golden Lewin Hall wearing dragon robes and asked me what reward I wanted. I said, I beg His Majesty the Emperor to grant this commoner 100 taels of gold and release me from the palace to marry. He got so angry he nearly smashed the imperial seal. Did I ask for too much money? My dad was a gambling addict who gambled away everything our family had. My mom tried everything to stop him, but it was useless. She jumped into the river with my brother who wasn't even a year old. When they found the bodies, they were already bloated. My dad not only didn't change, he gambled even more fiercely. He wanted to sell me to a brothel. I heard the aunties next door talking about it before. Girls who enter brothels never end up well. They're either tortured to death by clients or catch some disease and get thrown out to rot alive. I didn't want to end up that miserable, and I especially didn't want my dad to take the money from selling me to go play dice. Even though I know a lowly girl like me isn't worth much anyway, letting him easily take those few coins from selling me and toss them away at the gambling den. I still felt it wasn't worth it for myself. Since I wouldn't live long anyway, might as well choose how I die. I thought the memorial arch pillar in front of the brothel looked pretty good. Carved with dragons and phoenixes, it should be pretty sturdy, right? I charged into it without hesitation. Didn't die. The fifth prince's carriage happened to pass by. With a wave of his slender, elegant hand, his guard leaped through the air and blocked my path. I crashed into that tall, burly guard, hard as a rock, and my head went a bit fuzzy. The fifth prince was very good looking. His skin was also very fair, more beautiful than any courtesan I'd ever seen, like an exiled immortal who didn't belong to this mortal world. Stepping out of a painting, only his eyes and brows were as cold as ice and snow. His unsmiling expression made him seem somewhat stern, giving off an intense sense of pressure. The fifth prince lowered his gaze to look at me. I immediately lowered my head. A spirited little girl, take her back to be a kitchen maid, the fifth prince ordered indifferently. His voice had a particularly crisp and clear quality to it, like mountains, spring water flowing over stone walls, or a stream trickling through a verdant forest. Though his tone was calm, it somehow exuded an imposing air of authority. That tall, burly guard tossed a bag of silver to my father and carried me off. Literally carried. He was almost 2 heads taller than me. Later, I learned from the aunties in the kitchen that this guard, who hadn't said a single word to me the whole time, was called a mo. His martial arts were exceptional, his skills unfathomably deep. The fifth prince, Zhao Sergio, was the most favored prince in the palace. His mother was the imperial consort, and his maternal grandfather was the grand marshal of cavalry commanding hundreds of thousands of troops. The fifth prince's fiancée is the daughter of the current prime minister, and the wedding is set for 3 months later. Right now, there is no other master in the prince's residence besides him. Although he looks cold and aloof, he never mistreats the servants. For the first time, I experienced what it feels like to eat my fill and wear warm clothes. I also really like my job as a kitchen maid tending the fire, especially since it is winter now. Being in the kitchen basically all day, I've never felt cold. Sometimes when I am carrying firewood, I can see the fifth prince coming and going with a mo from afar. Even though we're in the same residence, they and I seem like people from 2 different worlds. Wait, isn't this opening way too brutal? Birth mom jumped into the river holding her little brother, gambling addict, dad wanted to sell his daughter to a brothel, and the female lead just straight up rammed her head into a pillar to die. I'd call this move the live version of rather shatter like Jade than survive as a broken tile. The key point is the fifth prince just happened to pass by and saved her. How lucky can you get? But honestly, I like the female lead's personality since I won't live long anyway. Might as well choose how I die myself. That resolve is amazing, way better than those who cry and beg for mercy. Also, the moment the female lead entered the prince's residence, she started observing and eating melons, stuff like, the fifth prince is prettier than the top courtesan, and Amo is 2 heads taller than me. Her observation skills are something else, truly a down-to-earth kitchen maid. On in time, when I was passing by the pond, I almost slipped and fell in. In this freezing cold weather, if I fell in, it would definitely cost me half my life. Just then, the fifth prince happened to pass by. Amo grabbed me like catching a chick and lifted me up from the lake surface. The fifth prince seemed to still remember me and sneered. "So it is that kitchen maid I brought back." His tone was very flat, but for some reason I could hear a hint of disdain in it. Could it be that I was mistaken? The fifth prince left, and I heard Amo speak to me for the first time. "His Highness is not someone you can have fantasies about. Keep your heart in check and do your job well, lest you incur His Highness's disgust." His voice was somewhat hoarse. I stood there dazed for a while before finally coming back to my senses. Did he just mean that he suspected I had improper thoughts about the fifth prince? I hurriedly denied it. No, how would I dare? Best if there isn't. After Amo finished speaking, he turned and left. I never dared to wander around the residence again, afraid that one day I'd anger the fifth prince and be kicked out of the prince's residence. I finally got to live the good life I'd dreamed of, and I didn't want to ruin it over some groundless accusations. But I never dreamed that a month later, I would be living a life where I could run around the residence without anyone to restrain me. Only at the same time, I couldn't eat my fill or dress warmly anymore. The fifth prince's mother was given poisoned wine, and her maternal family was executed to the last. He had his leg bones broken and was confined to the prince's residence. When this news came, all the servants in the entire residence went crazy. They grabbed whatever was valuable. Those aunties who were always so kind would fight tooth and nail over a bottle or a set of bedding. By the time João Sergio was thrown back, covered in blood, everyone in the mansion had already fled. The once beautiful and luxurious house was now dilapidated and in complete disarray. I wanted to leave too, but I didn't know where I could go. Go home so my father could sell me again. Before I could figure out where to go, I saw João Sergio being tossed inside. He was covered in blood, his face deathly pale, eyes tightly shut, barely breathing. Even though I was terrified, I couldn't just stand by and watch him die. Besides, he was the one who had saved me before. Mother used to say, "Repay a drop of kindness with a gushing spring." He saved my life, so of course I should take care of him. Although almost everything valuable in the mansion had been stolen. But because time was short, some worthless herbs were still left behind. I don't know medicine, but when I was a kitchen maid, I'd brewed medicine for others many times. I still remembered roughly what herbs went into wound medicine, even if something was missing. At this point, I could only try anything and hope for the best. I first cleaned his wounds with water, then applied the wound salve. His back was beaten raw and bloody. Just looking at it made me feel like I was dying from the pain. The worst was his leg injury. It seemed to be broken, twisted at a frightening angle. I found a few sticks and bound it up for him back. When an uncle in the village broke his leg, I saw the doctor tie it up just like this. After treating the wound, I gathered some herbs for replenishing blood and qi, boiled them into a pot, and fed it to him spoonful by spoonful. I've done all I can. Whether he lives or not is up to him now. I am not strong enough to lift him, so I could only find a few blankets to lay on the ground for him, and grabbed a quilt from the servants' quarters under the bed to cover him. I also made a makeshift bed on the floor next to him and fell asleep. By the time I woke up, the fifth prince, no, João Sergio, was already awake. He has been demoted to a commoner now, no longer of royal blood. He stared blankly at the ceiling with empty eyes, his expression dull and wooden, looking like he'd gone stupid. "Your Highness, you are awake." I called out cautiously. He ignored me. "Are you hungry? I'll go get something to eat." Still ignoring me, if he didn't want to talk, there was nothing I could do. I went to the kitchen, found some leftover rice, made some porridge, prepared 2 small dishes, and brought them to his side. "Your Highness, how about eating a little?" I asked quietly. João Sergio still had no reaction, so I stopped bothering with him and picked up my bowl to drink. If he won't eat, well, I am still hungry. Only after I finished eating did I notice his jet black eyes staring intently at me. It gave me a creepy feeling. What is wrong, Your Highness?" I swallowed hard and asked somewhat nervously. He was silent for a long time, then suddenly spoke. "Everyone else has left. Why didn't you leave? Aren't you afraid?" "What is there to be afraid of? This place is big and beautiful. Isn't it much better than outside?" I asked blankly. Isn't it just being locked in this big house and not being able to go out? It is way better than going out and being casually sold off by my dad. A flash of surprise passed through his eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. I really didn't expect this plot twist. One second he is the high and mighty fifth prince. The next second his legs are broken, and he is thrown back to the manor, and everyone in the manor ran faster than rabbits. Those usually kind aunties would fight over a single vase. This is true human nature. The key is the female lead's thought process is also peculiar. This place is big and beautiful, isn't it much better than outside? Girl, are you really carefree or just a naive sweetheart? But honestly, I love this adversity reveals true feelings set up. The female lead using the village uncle's bone fracture experience to set the fifth prince's bones. I'd call this rustic medical skill folk wisdom. His voice said lightly, "Yea, what is there to be afraid of?" I lowered my head, not knowing how to respond. He looked out the window and softly instructed, "Go push that cart from the backyard over here and move me into the room." What he said made a lot of sense. His severe injuries hadn't healed yet, and if he caught a cold on top of that, he might lose his life. I just didn't expect that after going through such a huge upheaval, falling from the clouds into the mud. He could still be this calm, truly worthy of being the Emperor's son. I used all my strength to move him onto the bed. I wasn't strong enough and could barely move him, which made his wounds tear open again, bleeding profusely. I stood there at a loss looking at him, my heart full of guilt. I could only say dryly, "Your Highness, let me redo it for you." João Sergio lay on the bed, his brow slightly furrowed, seeming to be in great pain. Ha gritted his teeth and endured without making a sound. Only when I was re-splinting his leg bones did he instruct me in a hoarse voice on how to do it. "Hold the place where my bone is fractured and dislocated. Twist it hard to the right, then push it inward with force." I didn't know bone setting, and it took me several tries before I managed to straighten the dislocated part of his leg and bandage it properly. To me, this process was no different from torture, but he let me fumble around without making a sound, as if that leg wasn't his, as if he didn't feel any pain at all. It wasn't until I looked up and saw that he had bitten his lips to a bloody mess that I realized he wasn't without pain, he was just forcing himself to endure. I sighed, fetched a basin of hot water, and wiped the blood and cold sweat off his body. After all, I had already seen everything when I applied medicine to him yesterday. He stared at me expressionlessly as I wiped his body until I reached a certain spot. Then he gritted his teeth and said, "You are a girl, don't you feel any shame?" "Shame? Why should I feel shame?" I looked at him puzzled. When I used to bathe my little brother, my parents never said anything about it. The corner of João Sergio's mouth twitched hard twice. He glared at me for a long while before squeezing out 2 words. "Idiot." After saying that, he turned his head and continued playing dead. I pouted and secretly complained a few words. Over the next few days, his eating, drinking, relieving himself, changing bandages, and applying medicine were all done by me. He also gradually got used to my rough way of caring for him. But the food supplies in the residence were almost gone. If this continued, he and I would probably starve to death here. "Your Highness, aren't you under house arrest? How come no one brings you food?" I asked, puzzled. João Sergio sneered. "They probably can't wait for me to die here. How could they possibly bring me food?" "They?" I asked in surprise. "Could they be your enemies?" João Sergio scoffed. "No, they're my family." I wasn't surprised either. After all, my own father didn't care whether I lived or died. Looks like the imperial family isn't much different from common folk, all willing to let their own family die for their own sake. Without supplies, I could only figure things out myself. Fortunately, the prince's residence was very large, with a pond and a forest. Picking wild vegetables and catching fish was enough for me and João Sergio to survive. It is just that the fish looked all colorful and pretty, but it tasted fishy when eaten. "Your Highness, don't buy this kind of fish anymore. It doesn't taste good." I complained while spitting out fish bones. João Sergio looked at the golden dragonfish in the bowl, his expression dazed. "Eat up, Your Highness. It took me forever to catch it." I urged, "Don't want to eat." He shook his head and refused. I rolled my eyes, silently grumbling in my heart, so fussy. But I didn't dare to persuade him anymore. If he doesn't eat, I can have more for myself. A month later, João Sergio's legs could touch the ground again. I made him 2 crutches and helped him to the courtyard to bask in the sun. João Sergio sat in the wheelchair. Gazing into the distance with a faraway look, I looked over. That was the direction of the imperial palace. Are there any incense, candles, and joss paper in the residence? He suddenly asked. I was stunned for a moment, then hurriedly shook my head and said no. He closed his eyes, a sad smile appearing on his face, and said softly, forget it. Your Highness, if you want them, I can ask the guards to help buy some. I hesitated for a moment, but still spoke up. Over this past month, whenever I was bored, I would wander around by the gate. I also got familiar with a few guards. Although I couldn't get them to let me out, having them bring small things was no problem. I still had a few taels of monthly allowance saved up from before. It was all given by Jao Sergio anyway, so spending it on him now seemed fitting. Jao Sergio didn't say anything, so I took it as his silent agreement. I immediately scurried off to find the guards. When I came running back with incense, candles, and joss paper, a hint of surprise flashed in Jao Sergio's eyes. Jao Sergio found a few wooden boards, carved the names of his mother consort and his maternal grandfather's family on them, arranged them in a row, and lit the incense. He endured the pain and knelt on the ground, respectfully kowtowed several times with audible thuds, then burned the joss paper. I squatted beside him, watching the ashes from the burnt-out flames scatter in the air, and an inexplicable sadness welled up in my heart. After he finished burning the joss paper, he fell silent. The room sank into an eerie silence. After a long while, I finally couldn't hold back anymore and asked, Your Highness, can I ask you for a favor? Speak, Jao Sergio's indifferent voice sounded. Could you carve a tablet for a Mo? I want to burn some joss paper for him too, I said cautiously. I had asked the guards about it, and it seemed like all of Jao Sergio's guards had died. Mo had no other relatives, so probably no one was burning money for him to spend. He saved me twice. So burning some money for him would be my way of repaying him. Hearing this, Jao Sergio's gaze deepened. He glanced at me, then slowly said, No need, he is not dead. Not dead? I asked in delighted surprise, my tone somewhat excited. Then why hasn't he come to find you? Either he ran away, or the guards are too tight for him to get in. I nodded, thinking what he said made a lot of sense. As long as he is not dead, that is good enough. Seeing my face full of joy, Jao Sergio scoffed, You are quite the loyal one, remembering to repay the kindness of everyone who has saved you. I ignored him. After a month of living together, I wasn't that afraid of him anymore. After all, he is not a prince anymore anyway. Aha, this part really got to me when the female lead said, Don't buy this kind of fish anymore. I almost burst out laughing, girl. That is a golden dragonfish from the royal pond. Not something you buy at the market. Jao Sergio looked at the golden dragonfish in his bowl with a dazed expression. This contrast is just too tragic. The fifth prince who used to live in luxury now has to eat an ornamental fish. What is even more hilarious is that the female lead was going to burn paper money for a Mo, but he wasn't even dead. I'd call this mix-up premature memorial service. But I really love the female lead's personality, grateful and loyal, a million times better than those fence-sitters. It was a few months later when I saw Mo again. During these months, after Jao Sergio's health recovered, he wrote calligraphy and painted pictures for me to have the guards sell outside. The money from sales was split 50-50 between us. Jao Sergio's calligraphy and paintings were inherited from masters, so they sold for good prices. Our meals went from wild vegetables and fruits to having meat every day. I, who used to be as skinny as a dried daylily, gradually became plumper and even grew taller. I felt like I looked much better than before. When Jao Sergio had free time, he would teach me to read and write, and also teach me to paint and play the chin. It is just that I've always been stupid and clumsy. Not only was my handwriting crooked, but my chin playing and painting were even more unbearable to look at. He often got so angry that he would hit my palms with a ruler. The only thing I got somewhat good at was chess. If he was in a better mood, I could still play a few moves with him. Amo appeared in front of me suddenly. At that time, I was cooking, and he suddenly flew in from outside, giving me a big surprise. Seeing me, he was also very surprised. Little maid, why are you still here? I lowered my head and answered somewhat embarrassedly, I've always been here, never left. He stared at me blankly for a long time before asking in a low voice, So you've been the one serving His Highness these past few months? Yeah, there is only him and me left here. If I don't serve him, who will? I answered strangely. It seems you really do like His Highness, he murmured, his tone complicated. His voice was very soft, I didn't hear clearly, and blinked my eyes. Nothing. He lowered his brows, concealing all the expression in his eyes. Ever since Amo came, this confined fifth prince's residence gradually became lively. I met many people I had never seen before. Some of them flew down from the sky. Some of them crawled out from underground tunnels. To be honest, I've lived here for over a year, and I never realized the prince's residence had so many secret tunnels. They didn't avoid me either, and when they saw me, they politely greeted me. Although I am dumb and don't know much. I guess João Sergio must be working on something big. It is just that it had nothing to do with a kitchen maid like me. Until one day, the main gate that had been sealed for most of the year actually opened. I curiously went up to see who it was, but was stopped by João Sergio. Go make some tea. João Sergio ordered coldly. Oh, I obediently replied and ran towards the kitchen. When I came out with the tea, there was actually a gorgeously dressed woman sitting in João Sergio's living room, beautiful like a fairy. I couldn't help but look her over. She wore a red dress, radiant as peach blossoms, her skin fairer than snow, with a hint of arrogance between her brows. I was a bit surprised, seeing this. João Sergio frowned, then said in a deep voice, "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and pour tea for our honored guest." Oh, right away. I hurriedly set down the tea tray in my hands, and with trembling hands offered a cup of hot tea. She raised her eyes and glanced at me, but didn't reach out to take it. I awkwardly withdrew my hands a bit, not knowing whether to keep holding it up or put it back on the table. After a while, she finally extended her hand, and I quickly moved the tea forward. However, before I could breathe a sigh of relief, she suddenly raised her hand and knocked over the tea bowl. Ah! I cried out in alarm as the scalding tea instantly splashed onto the back of my hand. It hurt so much that tears nearly fell from my eyes, and I pitifully covered the back of my hand. The woman let out a cold snort and said disdainfully, "Useless trash, is this the kind of trash that has been serving His Highness these past few months?" I bit my lip, angry but not daring to speak. Enough. Stop standing there like a post. João Sergio waved his sleeve irritably. Clumsy oaf, get out. Oh, I responded weakly and walked out with my head lowered. When I reached the courtyard gate, the woman called out to me again, "Stop." I stopped in my tracks, turned around, and looked at her timidly, asking cautiously, "Does the young lady have any other orders?" She gave me a disgusted look and said to João Sergio in a sharp tone, "She offended me, and you are just letting her go like this." João Sergio was stunned for a moment, then asked carelessly, "Then what do you want?" In our Prime Minister's manner, a servant girl who nearly scalds her master would be beaten to death directly. She said casually, so she was João Sergio's former fiancée. I widened my eyes and immediately knelt down to beg for mercy. "Please spare me, young lady, this servant knows her mistake." I stared fixedly at João Sergio, hoping he would plead for me. But João Sergio only glanced at me indifferently, his tone flat and emotionless as he said, "She is just a servant. Since she is displeased, Lady Wei, drag her out and beat her to death with sticks." His tone was too calm, as if I was nothing more than an insignificant ant. Back when João Sergio was still the fifth prince, I had seen him beat servants who made mistakes to death. I never thought that today it would be my turn. In the eyes of these people with overwhelming power, we are nothing but pawns that can be sacrificed at any time. Thinking of this, I felt disheartened and lay prostrate on the ground, no longer harboring any illusions of begging for mercy. Just when I was in despair, the young lady called Lady Wei let out a PFFT laugh and shot João Sergio a coquettish glare. Forget it, forget it. Considering you belong to His Highness, I'll spare your life. Go outside and slap yourself 100 times. I kowtowed with tears of gratitude, thanking Lady Wei for her mercy. Then I retreated to the courtyard and began slapping myself hard across the face. My cheeks quickly swelled up. Although my life is worthless, even ants cling to life, let alone humans. The young lady called Lady Wei left not long after. Before she left, I heard her say to João Sergio, "Your Highness, rest assured. Before long, I will have my father rescue you and clear your name." I don't know why it took her several months before she remembered to save João Sergio. I suppose João Sergio must have done something outside. João Sergio squatted down in front of me, stopping my hand that was about to slap myself again, and said with a hint of disdain, "Why are you so stupid? You don't even know to go easy when hitting yourself. Everyone's gone now. Why are you still hitting yourself?" I lowered my head and said nothing. I wasn't afraid of her. I was afraid of him. He sighed and left. Before long, a Mo came, bringing a jar of ointment with him. I don't know why, but seeing him made me feel a bit wronged. My eyes stung, and tears started falling down pitter-patter. A Mo was startled and frantically took out a handkerchief to wipe the tears from the corners of my eyes. Does it hurt a lot? How about I apply some medicine for you? I shook my head and said gloomily, no need, I can apply it myself, thank you. After saying that, I picked up the ointment and applied it to my face, the pain making me grimace. A trace of sympathy flashed through Mo's dark eyes, and after a while he finally spoke. Don't blame His Highness, he had no choice either. If he wants to overturn the verdict for his maternal grandfather, he has no choice but to use the Prime Minister's manner. I don't understand the world of these nobles, nor can I comprehend all their scheming and deception. I nodded silently without making a sound. The two of us each had our own thoughts, and we were quiet for a moment. In the end, it was a Mo who couldn't hold back first. After hesitating for a moment, he tentatively asked, His Highness should be able to restore his prince status soon. If you want to become His Highness's concubine, you could ask him when he is in a good mood, and His Highness might grant your wish. I widened my eyes in shock. Become his concubine. I pointed at myself with my finger. Me, Mo nodded solemnly. I immediately rejected. Impossible. He furrowed his brows. How could this be impossible? You've been personally serving His Highness for so long. Would becoming His Highness's concubine somehow be beneath you? Aunts, I've saved enough money. I am going back to my hometown to get married. I shook my head firmly. I don't have any improper thoughts about His Highness. Really? Mo raised his sword-like eyebrows, staring at my profile with some suspicion. I nodded vigorously. Really? He didn't say anything more. I felt that he was unusually strange tonight, but I didn't take it to heart. Just as Mo said, before long, Jao Sergio restored his prince status. Our prince's residence, which had been like a prison, finally became magnificent and splendid. Only now the new servant's gazes toward me had also become respectful. I was no longer the kitchen maid I used to be. I had become Jao Sergio's only personal maidservant. Jao Sergio wanted me to learn how to manage the household. I directly refused. The few characters I know were taught by Jao Sergio, and my arithmetic is barely passable. As for socializing and entertaining guests, I am completely clueless. He stared at me for a long time. You really are the same as always, with no ambition whatsoever. After saying that, he turned and left. I pouted and muttered, who cares anyway? He seemed to have heard me and turned back to glare at me fiercely. I was so scared that I immediately shut up. The prince's residence has a very large hot spring. It is just that when he was under house arrest, no one took care of it, and it had fallen into disrepair. Now it has finally been cleaned up. Jao Sergio also invited specialized craftsmen to renovate the hot spring pool and expanded it considerably. Almost every night, Jao Sergio would go soak in the hot spring to relieve his fatigue. I attended to him while he bathed. He closed his eyes and leaned against the pool wall to rest. The scars on his back and legs were still shocking to see. Seeing me spacing out, he suddenly sat up, pulled me close, and looked down at me. What are you thinking about? The heat radiating from his body pressed against my skin through the thin fabric. I was startled, not knowing what had gotten into him. I asked tremblingly, Your Highness, did I do something wrong? How about I have Biu and Chenxiang come in instead? Biu and Chenxiang are senior maids bestowed by the emperor, pretty and clever, and most importantly, 100 times more professional than me when it comes to serving their master. As soon as I finished speaking, Jao Sergio grabbed my arm and pinched it so hard it hurt. He narrowed his eyes and stared at me dangerously. Sha Ningshuang, what exactly are you overthinking? Hearing the name Sha Ningshuang, I was stunned for a moment. Only then did I remember that was my full name. Ever since I entered the prince's residence, people have been calling me girl, or the one who tends the fire. It has been a long time since anyone mentioned this name. Thinking of this, I suddenly felt a bit dazed. It seems like some things happened a very long time ago. Seeing me spacing out, Jao Sergio let out a sigh of relief, reached out to stroke my hair, and said softly, "Stay obediently by my side, and I won't treat you badly." Hearing his words, I felt something was a bit strange. What does he mean by staying by his side? I am just a maid, where else could I go? While I was spacing out, I suddenly saw a sharp arrow shoot in through the window. flying straight toward Zhao Sergio. I had no time to think and screamed in fright, "Watch out!" Then I threw myself onto Zhao Sergio. Holding him tightly, the arrow pierced through my shoulder blade. Instantly, blood was everywhere. The pain cut to the bone. Before I passed out, I only heard Zhao Sergio's heart-wrenching cry, "Shanning Shuang, someone come quick." The voice was shrill, as if it was even more painful than when his bones were broken and reset. I don't know how long I was unconscious. When I woke up, my whole body was weak and my head was dizzy. Candles were lit inside the room, the light dim and hazy. Zhao Sergio sat by the bed. Seeing that I had woken up, he raised his head and revealed an ecstatic expression. "Shuang-er, you are awake." "Shuang-er, has his brain gone bad? The one who is injured is me, not him." I was about to speak, but it tugged at my wound, making me grimace in pain. "Don't move. You are seriously injured." He hurriedly held me down. "The imperial physician said your injury needs at least a month of rest. You absolutely must not move recklessly." "Oh, then I won't be able to serve your highness this month," I said with a frown. Although I didn't really care whether I could serve him or not, what if during this month of rest I couldn't keep my position as a first-rank maid? Wouldn't my monthly allowance shrink? You should know that my current monthly allowance is 10 taels of silver per month. After working for a full year, I can go back to my uncle's home and register as an independent household, buy a few acres of land, and become a small landlady. Just thinking about it is wonderful. I absolutely can't lose this. Zhao Sergio didn't expect that I was still worried about not being able to serve him. He actually became unusually gentle with me. "Don't worry, the position by my side will always be kept for you." Hearing him say this, my heart immediately settled down, and I said with a smile, "Thank you, your highness." "Then rest well, I'll come see you again tomorrow." He gave a few instructions and then left before leaving. He also told Chen Shang to take good care of me and not to be neglectful. By evening, I was terribly thirsty, but I was lying in bed unable to move. Any movement caused intense pain. I was just a servant myself. So how could I feel comfortable ordering others around? Besides, Chen Shang came from the palace, and normally she looked down on everyone except Zhao Sergio. I sighed. I could only endure it. To my surprise, the window suddenly opened, and a Mo, dressed all in black, nimbly jumped in. I was startled and instinctively wanted to scream, but he covered my mouth. "Don't scream." "It is me," he lowered his voice. I blinked my eyes, signaling him to let go of me. Only then did he release his hand. I took a couple of breaths, and only then noticed he was also holding a string of candied hawthorns, glistening and bright red, very eye-catching. "For me?" I asked. He nodded, helped me sit up, and handed me the candied hawthorns. "I know you are in a lot of pain, so here is something sweet for you." I bit into one, and the sweet and sour taste filled my mouth, instantly dispelling much of my pain. "I am dying of thirst. Could you please pour me some water?" Hearing this, he turned around to pour water, only to find that the water in the teapot had long gone cold. Although spring had already begun, the weather was still very cold. I was already seriously injured, and if I drank cold water on top of that, I am afraid it would worsen my condition. He furrowed his brow, and as a fellow servant, he quickly understood the reason. "Wait a moment, I'll go get a pot of hot water," he said as he grabbed the empty teapot and jumped out the window. Before long, he came back carrying hot water. I gulped down several cups before finally stopping. "I'll sleep on the couch tonight to take care of you," he said, and then lay down on the soft couch. "No need, how could that be appropriate?" I quickly declined. "Don't worry, if someone else comes, I'll hide. I won't let you be subject to gossip," he explained. I didn't understand what being subject to gossip meant, but I did appreciate his kindness. From that day on, Amo took care of me for several nights and only left when I could get up and walk again. Zhao Sergio came to see me twice and even brought me some tonics I had never eaten before, things like blood-swallow ginseng and such. Tasted awful, indeed. We poor folks and these nobles aren't from the same world, spending a fortune on such terrible tasting stuff. Might as well buy a couple of lamb buns instead. After that, Zhao Sergio and Amo became busy. I didn't see them for over half a month. What I didn't expect was that when we met again, it would be on a cliff in the outskirts. I was tied up and captured. What surprised me even more was that the young lady from the Prime Minister's manor, the one called Wei Nyang, had also been captured. I am just a kitchen maid who tends the fire. Yet I've actually become a bargaining chip to threaten Zhao Sergio. Zhao Sergio, I'll give you credit. Even after falling to such a state, you still managed to make a comeback. The person who tied us up let out a cold snort and said mockingly, Zhao Jin, the biggest mistake you made was wanting to see me in a miserable state without finishing me off. Now that things have come to this, if you are willing to submit to me, considering our brotherhood, I might spare your life. Zhao Sergio's indifferent voice rang out. You want me to be your dog, dream on, Zhao Jin spat at him. Even if I die, I won't let you have it easy. Look at these two women. Zhao Jin held a dagger and gestured at my face and Wei Nyang's. One is the beauty who shared hardships with you and risked her life to save you. The other is the fiancé who can help you ascend to the throne, TSK, TSK. Come on, pick one of two. Who do you choose to die, beauty? Is he talking about me? I am just a kitchen maid who tends the fire, yet now I am actually being compared alongside the Prime Minister's daughter. This is truly an honor. If you dare kill my people, I'll make you wish you were dead. Zhao Sergio's eyes flashed with cold light, staring at Zhao Jin with a sinister gaze. Let's see if I dare. Zhao Jin suddenly threw his head back, laughing loudly, and the hand holding the dagger slashed my arm. It hurt so much, my mouth was gagged, so I could only let out muffled MMP sounds. Why is this guy cutting me instead of Wei Nyang, Zhao Jin? You are asking for death, Zhao Sergio roared furiously, his eyes blood red, as if he couldn't wait to rush over and kill Zhao Jin. Choose who dies. Hurry up, if you don't choose, I'll kill both of them. Zhao Jin placed his dagger against Wei Nyang's neck. Wei Nyang was so scared her face turned pale, her beautiful face covered with terrified tear stains. Zhao Sergio glanced at me and finally closed his eyes, pointing at me and said, I choose her. Be more specific. What are you choosing her for? Zhao Jin widened his eyes and asked viciously. I choose her to die, he said with difficulty. Although I already knew the outcome, hearing his words I still couldn't help but tremble. Zhao Sergio looked at me, wanting to say something but stopping himself, and in the end said nothing. As expected of my good little brother, the throne is indeed more important in your heart. Zhao Jin burst into laughter after saying this. Fine, since you've made your choice, I'll grant your wish. He suddenly raised the dagger in his hand and stabbed toward me. I widened my eyes, watching the long blade stabbing toward me, feeling as if every pore on my body had opened up. I am dead for sure, dead for sure. Just at that moment, a dark figure suddenly blocked in front of me and reached out to grab that sharp dagger. Zhao Jin obviously didn't expect someone to climb up from the cliff, and he just stood there stunned. Amo kicked him in the stomach, and he fell to the ground in a sorry state, the dagger in his hand also dropping to the floor. Zhao Sergio and his guards rushed over as well. I was held in Zhao Sergio's arms, looking at his anxious eyes, but I felt somewhat baffled. Shouldn't his first priority be to comfort the eldest miss of the Prime Minister's manor? Why is he holding me? Wasn't he the one who chose for me to die just now? How come in the blink of an eye he is like a different person, suddenly caring about me, just as I was puzzled? Several dozen masked men suddenly surrounded us from all directions. They quickly drew their weapons and engaged in combat with the guards. Zhao Sergio protected me and Wei Nyang as we retreated, raised his hand to point at Zhao Jin, and said through gritted teeth, capture him for me. Only then did I hazily understand. Zhao Jin was burning his bridges, either killing Zhao Sergio here or perishing together with him. The two sides were locked in chaotic battle, blood splattered all over the ground. I was held tightly in Zhao Sergio's arms, only able to stare blankly at everything with wide eyes. Amo was like a god of death, invincible wherever he went. Zhao Jin watched as his men grew fewer and fewer, panicking terribly. Zhao Jin surrendered now, and I can still leave you with an intact corpse, Zhao Sergio said coldly. Ha ha ha. Zhao Jin suddenly burst into laughter. Those words should be said by me. A crazed look suddenly appeared on his face as he pulled out a black ball from his chest. Not good. It is a thunderbolt bomb. Zhao Sergio's face changed drastically as he shouted, Run, Zhao Sergio. Let's die together. Zhao Jin's smile was eerie and cruel. Then he threw the thunderbolt bomb towards us. Just then, Amo suddenly rushed out, grabbed the thunderbolt bomb, and threw it back at him. Boom! A deafening explosion rang out, and Zhao Jin was instantly blown to pieces, flesh and blood flying everywhere. As for Amo, because he couldn't dodge in time. His left arm had already been severed into 2 pieces. Amo, I let out a heart-wrenching scream and threw myself to his side. His face still wore a gentle smile, only his breath was growing weaker. Amo, don't scare me. I held up his bloody severed arm and burst into tears. He reached out his other uninjured hand, wiped the blood from my face, and whispered, "Don't be afraid." As soon as he finished speaking, he passed out. Fortunately, among the accompanying guards, there was one who knew medicine, who stopped Amo's bleeding in time, then sent him to the Imperial Medical Department, and only then was his life saved. But his arm could never be reattached, and he could no longer stay at the prince's manor. Zhao Sergio bestowed upon him 1,000 taels of gold, a residence in the capital city, and a royal estate in the outskirts. After Zhao Sergio ascended the throne as emperor, he also bestowed upon him the title of 5th-rank junior defender of the state, which could be passed down for 3 generations. For a guard, even with the merit of saving the sovereign, this was already considered great imperial favor. When Amo left, I went to see him off. Looking at his empty sleeve, I choked up, unable to utter a single word. "After I leave, take good care of yourself." He gently patted my shoulder and said, "After entering the palace, learn to be smarter, don't always be foolish and get harmed by others." I nodded with tears in my eyes. Actually, I didn't want to enter the palace at all. I was already walking on thin ice in the Prince of He's residence, trembling with fear, let alone the palace. But I am just a maidservant, what could I do, even if I was unwilling? After he left, I felt like I had lost my soul, feeling depressed every day. Seeing me like this, Zhao Sergio asked with concern, but I refused to say anything. I just never expected that I would also have the chance to make a choice for myself. After the old emperor died, Zhao Sergio successfully ascended the throne as emperor. Weiniang successfully became the empress, the mother of the nation. Besides her, several ministers' daughters were also made imperial consorts. At the consort investiture ceremony, Zhao Sergio suddenly called my name, Sha Ningxuang. You have rendered meritorious service in protecting me multiple times. Whatever reward you want, just say it. As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes turned to me. The empress and all the consorts looked at me with cold expressions. Really? My head was dazed by the sudden surprise, and I asked back stupidly, "Of course it is real." Zhao Sergio's expression was very serious. My word is golden, I never go back on it. As soon as his words fell, a strong joy suddenly surged from the bottom of my heart, and I said without hesitation, "I beg His Majesty the Emperor to grant this servant 100 taels of gold, so that this servant can leave the palace and get married." As soon as I said this, the whole room fell silent. "You said you want to leave the palace and get married?" Zhao Sergio's voice was filled with disbelief and anger. I shrank my neck a bit fearfully, not understanding what I had said wrong. Could it be that I asked for too much money? Thinking of this, I quickly added, "Well, 50 taels would be fine too." Crash! Zhao Sergio forcefully swept all the bowls and dishes on the table to the ground, making a huge noise. Everyone was too scared to speak. No one dared to open their mouth again. "Do you know what you are saying?" His voice was so sinister it seemed to come from hell. I was terrified by his frightening voice and quickly knelt down. "Please forgive me, Your Majesty." He stared at me for a long time, then loudly ordered everyone else out. "Except for her, all of you get out." "Yes." Everyone hurriedly left. After they all left, Zhao Sergio suddenly straightened his body and approached me step by step. I retreated in fear until my back was against the wall, with nowhere left to retreat. He looked down at me, his gaze as sinister as a viper flicking its tongue. "Sha Ningxuang, are you really stupid or just pretending to be?" I shook my head, my lips trembling as I said, "This servant doesn't know what His Majesty the Emperor means. Tell me, do you really feel nothing for me at all?" Zhao Sergio glared at me with bloodshot eyes, veins bulging on his forehead, looking like he wanted to strangle me. I was so scared by him that my whole body went stiff. After a long while, I finally managed to squeeze out a few words. "This servant, of course, admires His Majesty the Emperor, admires." What a great admiration. With that, he suddenly pressed forward and kissed my lips. I was terrified, standing there dumbly without moving, like a wooden puppet. A moment later, he suddenly let go of me, stared at me for a long while before asking, "Fine clothes and delicious food in the palace. What is not good about it? Why do you want to leave?" I lowered my eyes and replied softly, This servant doesn't know how to compose poetry or paint, nor embroidery or tea brewing. I really can't do anything significant. I just want to find a quiet and peaceful little village, farm and grow flowers, and live a simple life." Hearing this, Zhao Sergio stared blankly for a long time, and finally sighed. "That is true with how foolish you are. How could you be suited to enter the palace and compete for favor?" I didn't say anything, keeping my head lowered but secretly thinking, who is foolish? I am quite clever, granted. "Now leave." Zhao Sergio waved his hand wearily, signaling me to scram. After respectfully kowtowing to express my gratitude, I turned and slowly walked out of the great hall. When I reached the doorway, I suddenly turned back. Zhao Sergio's eyes lit up for a moment. I scratched my head and said awkwardly, "Your Majesty, can I still get my gold back? If 50 taels is too much, 20 taels would be fine too." Zhao Sergio's face instantly darkened and he cursed through gritted teeth, "Get lost." I fled as if running for my life. When I had packed my things and was leaving the palace, Zhao Sergio's head eunuch found me and stuffed a stack of banknotes into my hands. I opened it and saw a full 100,000 taels. Jackpot, jackpot, I grabbed the silver and fled as fast as I could. I am not stupid. Zhao Sergio did have some fondness for me, but how much of that fondness would remain as time passed, in the eyes of people like them? So high above, lowly people like us are naturally supposed to adore them, worship them, look up to them, and obey them. But I don't understand the grand affairs they handle, and I don't care for their refined hobbies like music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. I'd rather climb mountains to pick fruit and wade into rivers to catch fish than sit like an idiot in a courtyard burning incense and brewing tea. Zhao Sergio should spend his life with someone like Wei Yang. All those things he taught me just annoyed me, including him. That nitpicky guy was pretty annoying too. The one I've loved from start to finish has always been a Mo ever. Since he saved me from under that memorial arch, I've liked him so much. He is tall and handsome, and his martial arts skills are amazing. When he helped me chop firewood, he could fill a whole room in just the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. He also buys me candied hawthorns and takes care of me when I am sick. I like him, and I've liked him for a long time. Not long after I left the Imperial Palace, I saw a tall, sturdy figure riding a black horse at the end of Long Street. That is my Amo. He came to pick me up. House arrest was a form of punishment used by the Qing dynasty imperial family for princes and clan members who had committed offenses. They would be confined to their residences or the imperial clan court, forbidden from going out, and cut off from all contact with the outside world. The living conditions of those under house arrest would drastically decline, and they might even be deprived of food and provisions, essentially a form of slow execution in disguise. Historically, Kangxi's crown prince Yinrong and Yongzheng's brothers were all subjected to house arrest. To put it bluntly, it is the ancient version of a triple combo: house arrest plus internet cutoff plus assets frozen. You think it is just not being allowed to go out. No. This is a full-scale blockade, no food, no supplies. All the servants ran off, not even a delivery guy in sight. In the story, after Zhao Sergio was confined, the scene of everyone in the mansion grabbing stuff and fleeing was literally a live version of "When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter." What is even more brutal is that the emperor didn't even send food. This is clearly trying to starve him to death. Luckily, the female lead stayed behind, otherwise the dignified fifth prince would have starved to death in his own home. I'd call this move royal edition survival in the wild. So you see, being a prince in ancient times wasn't easy either. One slip and you go from top of the world to prisoner. Modern society is still better. At least when you mess up there is labor reform. You won't just straight up starve to death.